Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. Time once again to review a Peanut special from Apple TV Plus. This time, Charlie Brown's name is in the title. It's The Small Things Charlie Brown. I have nothing else to say except let's get to the review. The special starts off with Charlie Brown having a dream where he wins a ball game against Peppermint Patty. Woodstock loses control of a garden hose while trying to fill Snoopy's pool, accidentally spraying Charlie Brown, causing him to wake up. Once the pool gets filled, Snoopy dives in, causing more water to splash on Charlie Brown, who then says, "Why can't I have a normal dog like everyone else?" I have to admit, this part was pretty funny. I couldn't stop laughing when I first saw it. Charlie Brown tells Linus about his dream as they are walking to the ball field. As you might have guessed, Charlie Brown takes this dream as a sign that they're going to win the pennant. Linus isn't so sure, because Charlie Brown says this every year. Despite this, Charlie Brown is still optimistic. Charlie Brown is like the most determined character I've ever came across, and that's why we love him. In this special, we see that his determination isn't based on some naivete. His team had in fact won a pennant before. It's just that every year since Peppermint Patty moved in the neighborhood, they lose. During practice, Charlie Brown's team actually does well. Snoopy being the all-star. It's a little weird that Franklin is now on Charlie Brown's team when he's usually on Peppermint Patty's, but I guess he had been traded. It's also weird that Shermie is now wearing a light blue shirt while a different character wears green. Does anyone know who this character is supposed to be? I've talked it over with other fans, and yet nobody seems to know who he is. Anyway, Sally comes along wanting to join the team. It turns out that Charlie Brown had promised her that when she turned 5, she can join the team. Instead of trying to come up with an excuse why she can't join, Charlie Brown welcomes Sally on the team. Sally doesn't do very well and feels pretty discouraged. Before he can offer any words of encouragement, Peppermint Patty and her team arrive on motorbikes. Except for Marcy, she has a regular bike. I guess her parents won't let her have a motorbike. Peppermint Patty and her team do some trash talk. Speaking of trash, the team points out how dirty the field is. For those who don't know, this is meant to be an Earth Day special, even though Earth Day is never mentioned once. After everyone leaves, Sally sits on the pitcher's mound, feeling down. That is when she sees the dandelion. Sally becomes attached to the dandelion, which causes problems for Charlie Brown and his team. You see, Sally refuses to move from the pitcher's mound in order to protect the dandelion, making it impossible for the team to practice. Charlie Brown tries to convince her to move, but is unsuccessful. He assumes that Sally would eventually get bored with the dandelion and leave, but once again, he is proven wrong. This is an even bigger problem, for the big game is about to start. Not knowing what else to do, Charlie Brown seeks advice from Lucy, who acts more like the Lucy we all know than in the previous special. Lucy goes to confront Sally on the mound. Instead of getting her to leave, Lucy decides to join Sally's cause, much to the annoyance of Charlie Brown, who had to pay extra to get her to do a field call. He even demands his money back. Poor Charlie Brown. He just wants to play his game. Lucy gathers a bunch of kids to the baseball field, where they participate in a sit-in. Like in For Auld Lang Syne, many are forgotten Peanuts characters. Charlie Brown's team arrives, and they aren't happy with the situation. Even though I understand their anger, I can't help but to feel bad for Charlie Brown. The poor guy tried everything he can to get his sister to move. He even paid Lucy to talk to her, and he saw how that turned out. Things take a turn when Lucy asks Schroeder to play his piano for the dandelion. Schroeder is like, "Screw the game, I'm going to play my piano." The others start to appreciate Sally's passion for the dandelion and decide to join in, leaving Charlie Brown alone. The things Charlie Brown has to go through for a game. Sally sings a pretty good song while the others start to clean up the field. I love the visuals they use for this song. It feels like something out of the 60s or 70s. Peppermint Patty and her team show up. Upon seeing the flower festival, Peppermint Patty assumes Charlie Brown is trying to prevent the game from happening to avoid a loss. So Marcy decides to list it off as a forfeit, meaning that Charlie Brown lost without even playing. Not wanting to wait another year, Charlie Brown decides to dig up the dandelion and put it in the pot. You have to give it to Charlie Brown. Even though he's rightfully annoyed, he is still respectful of his sister's feelings. He could have just ripped the dandelion out of the ground, but he's trying to remove it in a way that wouldn't damage it. That's a thoughtful big brother right there. Sally refuses to have the dandelion placed in the pot, so Charlie Brown tries to rip it out of the ground. During the scuffle with Sally, that's exactly what happens. Sally and the others walk away. Feeling guilty, Charlie Brown no longer wants to play the game. If there's one nitpick I have about this special, it's that I don't think Charlie Brown is entirely to blame for what happened. Sally should have been a little more willing to compromise with her brother. He was trying to dig it up and place it in the pot. Even though he personally didn't care about the dandelion, this shows that he was able to see how important it is to Sally. One of the things I hate about shows or movies with an environmental message is how uncompromising they can be. It's like you're only supposed to see the environmentalist side. Look, I'm not saying the environment isn't important. What I am saying is that issues are often nuanced. Yes, it's good that Sally wants to protect her dandelion, but she fails to understand where Charlie Brown is coming from. He just wants to play his game. I will give the special credit for this. During the scuffle, Charlie Brown did try to rip the dandelion out of the ground. In that moment, he crossed the line. Yeah, Sally should have been more reasonable, but he shouldn't have done that. I'm also willing to cut Sally some slack, since she's only 5 years old. What 5-year-old is reasonable? Another thing I like is how Sally did inspire the others to clean up the field where it looks so much better. Charlie Brown apologizes to Sally, and her dandelion seeds are then spread. They have their game, where Sally is made assistant manager. The special ends with Charlie Brown's team losing 0-100. I love how they had to paint an extra 0 on the scoreboard. It's the small things Charlie Brown is a really good special. The environmental message may annoy some people, but I thought it was handled very well. It never felt heavy-handed. I love how much emphasis is placed on Charlie Brown and Sally's relationship. That's something that rarely gets focused on in Peanuts. It was also very sweet how supportive Charlie Brown was with Sally wanting to join the team. The special never got as sweet as For Auld Lang Syne did. I love how in the end, Charlie Brown still lost the pennant. I've been enjoying all the new Peanuts content on Apple TV+, and I look forward to seeing more in the future. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.